What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Healing from the Rough. We have another great episode for you today. I'm sorry it took a few days to get up. I had a minor operation a few days ago. It's kept me out for a few days, but all is good. I'm well, and we're back at it. So this is going to be part one of episode with Mike Bazzoni. He is a current PXG employee and an Air Force veteran, and he's got a heck of a story to tell. So thanks for watching.
So we're here with our next episode. We've got Mike Bazzoni with us, and Mike, we just want to have you take a couple minutes and tell us who Mike Bazzoni is, and then if you can kind of give us a really brief summary of your time as an active duty service member, what that looked like.
So I currently work for PXG. I've worked in the computer industry pretty much my whole life except for the military. But I was a volunteer firefighter right after high school. Did that for a year, and then decided to join the Air Force and continued in the reserves. And I really enjoyed my time. It was Cold War, so not a lot of conflict. The divided Germany. It was kind of an interesting time. The wall fell down while I was in, which was really cool, and so a lot of peace. But then the Middle East started boiling up at that point. And right when I got out, that's when that all really started to bubble. So it was kind of strange because I'm out. I wanted to get back in, but I didn't. So
Where'd you spend your time stationed?
So most of mine was in Germany. So
Really?
Ramstein and Rhine-Main. Unfortunately, both are gone.
Well, I spent some time in Ramstein.
Yeah.
I flew in and out of there when I went to overseas.
So
I was stationed in Kitzingen, which was about
cool.
2 hours away.
Yeah. So we did. I worked air cargo. So we worked with all kinds of cargo, and it really wasn't a glamorous job. We actually would unbundle nets because we would drop cargo, and we'd drop cargo for you guys, and you guys would just leave the nets, which you guys should do because you're on a mission, and we'll unbundle them later. Well, we used to untie them and stuff like that. It was, some long hours, late nights. But one of the things that I really loved about Ramstein in particular, because middle of Black Forest of Germany, when we had breaks at night, because we worked night shifts, we would go out and we'd just sit on the docks watching the flight line. Now, you couldn't see the flight line. There were no lights. It's not like O'Hare where you see all the little dots and pitch black. But you could hear the fighters. Awesome. And then when they passed, so I'm getting goosebumps. When they passed about here, you could tell whether it was an F-16 or an F-15.
No kidding.
2 or
That's
1.
Awesome.
Because, we were Air Force, so.
So
it was very cool.
I was in Schweinfurt, then Grafenwehr, then Baumholder.
Nice.
So we've all been to Germany.
Yeah,
We've all been to
I've
Germany.
been to all those
Fantastic.
places. I played a lot of softball when I was over there, so I
Nice.
traveled a lot.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, awesome. Thank you. We're looking forward to the rest of the round of golf.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
If you're a veteran or first responder who has found a way to heal through golf, or if you work at or own a golf course and would like to be featured on our show, please email me at joseph.malsack@hftr.us.
All right, so give us a brief kind of description of some of the highlights of your time in service.
So I mean, obviously, getting to work with all kinds of aircrafts. When I was a kid, seeing aircraft and, but actually being there with it was a lot of fun. I think, I was thinking a lot about it. And ironically, I mean, my favorite experience was reserves. We were assigned to a task with the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg. And the reason I enjoy this the most, and this is a story that I really like, is we were actually, we were working with, other service members and doing something we weren't exactly sure, the OPSEC, we don't know what they were actually doing, but we were doing support for them. Yep. And doing in a cargo situation. So I was applying all of the things that I learned in the military in a real world environment and something that meant a lot. And it was really a lot of fun, and seeing the professionalism of that group, the 82nd Airborne, and how professional our group was. It was spectacular. And I think that was one of the most, it was the most enriching experience for me to actually see it all kind of play out and how we did things. It's awesome.
So I know, right, we have We have a lot of highlights when we're in the military. There's a lot of cool shit that we do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Part of healing from the rough is to kind of get everyone to accept that it's okay to talk about the lowlights, right?
Yeah.
And vets, first responders, we definitely deal with them, and
Yeah.
we deal with them probably exponentially more than the average civilian.
Right.
We don't have to get into too much, but
No.
did you go through anything in your time in service? And, you know, it doesn't have to be combat related. We all didn't deploy. Toxic leadership,
Right.
just things
Well,
that you saw.
Sure. I mean, one of the difficult times of that time was, and that's why that last story was so important. It was the application of the work that you were doing and seeing some positive results of it. And so there was a lot of negative, or a lot of things that you did that were rudimentary that you felt like didn't actually apply and never really did, and it was frustrating at times. But the most, I mean, the most difficult experience that I had been in was we were flying in a C-130 over the Sierra Nevadas, and we were in the back on the back ramp, just sitting there, and you could look out the jump windows. And we look out of the jump windows and you see the Sierra Nevadas. Beautiful. We see what we think is water coming out, coming across. And it's not raining, it's beautiful, it's pristine. So we call the loadmaster. The loadmaster comes back. He goes and gets the co-pilot. The pilot gets the pilot. We were dropping fuel, and they didn't even know. And I remember they had us, crash position. They shut down. So it was. So if you've flown on a C-130, it's very loud and
Hot.
and hot, right? So and I was on some Vietnam eras. So I was during the time that I was in, I got to see them move up from Vietnam era, which was really even worse, to hydraulics and things like that. But they put us in that situation, and I'll never forget just looking at the other guys, because you sit across from each other, and so you can't not look at each other, and we're all just kind of white, blank faces, and they shut all the engines except for one, the one where the fuel was coming out, because they didn't know if they shut that one down. And we emergency landed in Salt Lake City. And I remember, where I was sitting, I was in the front where the front windows are. There's only like 4 windows in the back of a C-130, and just lined with fire trucks. And when we got there, they dumped the back, and it was the first time I had seen them dump the back of a C-130. And what that means is, instead of hydraulics slowly going down and opening the back, it went boom, hit the ground really hard, loud noise, very loud noise. And they were like, run. You didn't touch your stuff, and you ran. And these guys, I remember the guys in silver, suits. You had the hazardous, the firefighters.
Hazmat suits. Yeah.
And we ran, and it's funny now because we made it, but it was the most traumatic. But actually, coming out of that, it just made me feel better about the military and everything we do. But the professionalism of the pilots and that, I mean, how at the end of that we made it,
That's wild.
And so to see a C-130 covered and it was just crazy.
Wow.
I really appreciate you opening up about that.
Heck yeah.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. So if you're a vet or a first responder and you want to come to a golf camp, come to be at one of the Next 18 events, all you need to do is go online to next18.org. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on LinkedIn, and you can find us on Instagram currently. All of those resources have links to get to our website to find our application page. Or you can reach out to me, Matt, M-A-T-T, at next18.org. I can give you any information you need. We would love to have you at a camp. And I realize you might be asking yourself, yeah, we're going to go play golf. Do I really want to deal with my mental health? Do I really want to deal with some of these things that I'm not a fan of dealing with? I think you should come here. You should get the resources and just be open-minded to maybe living a healthier, happier life. These guys are having a great time.
So, what's your experience with the game of golf?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, both my grandparents played, both my grandfathers played. And what was interesting was one grandfather didn't play at all during the summer, and the other one played whenever he could. So I had one grandfather who lived in the Joliet area of Illinois, and he was a member of the men's club, and he worked for Texaco. And so he would go with the guys after the graveyard shift and they'd play golf, and then he'd come home and have breakfast and relax, and then he'd sleep in the evening.
Right.
My other grandfather was a construction guy. He did construction all summer long. As soon as like Labor Day hit, him and my grandmother drove to Florida, and they lived in Florida for the entire winter until it got warm. So sometimes they wouldn't come back until well after Easter. So I got to see Cog Hill Municipal, and then my grandfather, he was a member of a private country called Turtle Creek in Tequesta, Florida. And so that's really where I learned golf mostly, is Tequesta, Florida. That's the place where I enjoyed it the most. And then the sad part is, and it's sad and it isn't, I mean, it's just life. My grandparents, both my grandfathers passed away, and I just kind of didn't golf anymore. My dad didn't golf, although my dad says he did, but he never invited me golfing. But no, and so, kind of high school hit. It was about that time when both my grandfathers died. And I just, I got into football. I got into, high school, and then joined the military. And actually, it was after I got out. I was in the reserves. Met a guy, and he's like, "Hey, we should play golf." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't played golf in forever." And I'll tell you, here's the story that I love the most. So, I hadn't played in a long time, and I didn't have clubs. I didn't have anything. I think we went to Venture. If you remember Venture stores, and got like a bag of clubs. It's like Target.
Okay.
You guys are too young. Anyways, so we got like a
40.
box of clubs with a bag and everything like that. We show up at the golf course, and I get out of the car, and I got my bag, and I hear somebody walking with spikes.
Metal.
Yes.
God, I
And
remember those days.
it still gives I'm a goosebump kind of guy. These kind of stories, they affect me in certain ways. It reminded me of my grandfather from Florida, because my other grandfather, he didn't really, I mean, if he had spikes on it or any of that, I don't remember any of that. I just remember going out, and we were Cog Hill is kind of like a field, and it was beautiful. It's much like this, but Florida was, country club, and there was certain things that were different. But hearing that, it reminded me of my grandfather. It brought me back to those days, and it was very, very nice experience. So, and then I've been playing now since then. I've volunteered for the Western Open at Cog Hill because I lived down there. I did that for 15 years. Worked transportation, so I got to meet everybody. You name them. Worked senior opens, U.S. Opens, PGA championships, anything I could volunteer at. And the reason I was kind of thinking about it when I was preparing for this. One of the things I really liked about volunteering was a sense of being together with other guys and women, and doing stuff and having a purpose. And I thought that was relevant to mention because, just doing something as simple as being a marshal or something like that, a lot of guys might not want to or think that, but you're going out, you're with a group of people and you're like-minded people, and it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
So I've enjoyed all that, and I've honestly got to meet, I mean, you guys, when you name a golfer, I have met them, and it's been fantastic. I mean, things I can't, like, Payne Stewart gave me a putting lesson in the parking
we can
lot
stop.
at Cog
Yeah.
Hill. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget that. And I had my flag with me, and I said, Payne, just sign it as big as you want. So my flag has Payne Stewart signed that big. I mean, it's so the game of golf. But I love, there's tradition and all that. But I also like seeing it grow, seeing new things. But I just love getting out, and just relaxing. That was the one thing. My grandfather, who would go to Florida, he was very rigid and very diligent in his work. He would be up very, very early, 4 a.m. at least, and he'd be back at, when it was past dark. He'd be working construction, hard work. When he was down there, completely different person.
Yep.
Relaxed. He would wear a pink shirt with yellow pants. You know, back then that was, you know, I guess the best thing to relate to you guys is like Caddyshack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very similar to that.
I almost wore that today.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Well, would it look good on you?
I have a lot of
I like
pink
the
for some
I like the
reason.
red. Yeah. Awesome.
That's really cool, man.
I'm
Thank you for
sorry if
sharing.
that
Especially the
story
part
took long.
about the
Thanks, Stuart.
spikes. Like that's
Well, and so
It's
Payne
those
Stewart's
memories.
walking with the spikes. That's the only golfer back then who would walk with spikes. And it reminded, when I met him, he's coming through the parking lot and I could hear him. He was one of the only ones at the time. Now I hear it a couple times. You know, honestly, my ears perk up when I'm watching TV and you hear like, you see like Bryson DeChambeau walking by and you hear the spikes.
And then
my
Brooks
ears pick
Koepka
up.
makes a comment, and then
Yeah,
we all get crazy, and
I
the
don't
media
get
blows
why.
up.
I don't get why. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, and so, but anyways, yeah, that's spikes. That sound of spikes. I wish I could get that back in golf, but people are too crazy.
Yep.
Thanks, brother.
For sure.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thank you.
So, what's your favorite part about working for PXG right now?
I mean, it's the hero program. There's no question. I mean, I saw an interview, and you never put words in Mr. Parsons' mouth or speak for him, but he said something to the effect of, it's not charity, it's respect. And when you hear that, and just right now, I kind of get chills, because that level of it not being charity, it being respect, it's just something that you just don't see nowadays. And it's so nice and so fresh. It's kind of hard not to work for a guy like that. So, but all the new products, there's always new things coming, and it's just exciting. Everything's new and different, and it's not boring or old. So, yeah.
So, some of the questions, right? We've been kind of leading to the point of talking about our traumas.
Yeah.
And the difficulties that as vets and first responders we face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what healing from the rough is, right?
Right.
We come out here to heal.
Right.
So if you're comfortable sharing anything from that exit point from the military, the ETSing, and maybe the first couple,
Right.
4 or 5 years, was there anything that came to the forefront for you that was like, in hindsight, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, 100%. I mean, right when I got back, the thing that bothered me the most was I landed back in an apartment with my mom, and I'm like, and the real struggle I had was applying my military background, my time in air cargo, to a civilian job. And I really thought I was going to get a job with United American. It doesn't matter what name you say. And that was my plan. I mean, I was so excited about that. And back when I would have to do that, I didn't have my phone. I didn't have the ability to easily do things. But, I would write letters. I would build a resume, etc. I get letters back, no. And I eventually, I told you early on in the episode that I went into computers, and I kind of went back to my default. I kind of went back to, hey, now, go back to what I feel comfortable with. So use, the military to get college time and get some computer background that, you could apply to a job. And that's what I kind of did. And I never used my air cargo experience, and it bothered me. And ironically, I mean, all these years later, recently I've been getting like, do you want to do that? And I'm like, I was in much better shape and a lot younger back then. That would have been the time.
Yeah.
And it was sad. It brought it all back recently, in a bad way, because I really felt kind of let down, and recently, I worked in the computer industry for a while. I had worked in one company for 22 years, and I enjoyed it. I felt kind of stuck there, I guess, but it was stability in a world of, non-stability, instability, and so, and then I got laid off. I'm like, wow, now what do I do? And luckily my wife was in a point where she could start working again, and So we kind of just started building back things up. And now when I look back on that, I don't look back and say, oh, it was terrible getting laid off. I'm happy that I did. I mean, it got me here. It got me to being in golf and doing and working in golf and enjoying it from different aspects and being able to apply all those things that I've learned. And, but you have these things and that's life. You ebb and flow through things. So, yeah.
Awesome.
That's it for part 1 with Mike. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned next week on Wednesday for part 2. I promise I'll have it up on Wednesday this time. We will be on time. And I have to send out a big shout out to Hawksview Golf Club in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Make sure you check out their website in the description box below. The team out there has been fantastic working with us. We are trying to get some events together coming up soon as well. And I look forward to working with them in the future. Stay tuned for a few more episodes that we have with them. And we will make sure we feature them as much as possible. So thank you to them as well. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks.